I was wondering, I don't know which direction these guys are heading, but probably not the very right. Parliament, members of Parliament actually expunged or removed a section from an act that barred civil servants from trading with government. So they're in the process of removing that, meaning that, you know, if you work in government, you can now actually, you know, fight for tenders with the government. Let me start with you, Leonard.
It doesn't sound good for civil servants to have access to tenders, because civil servants are the ones who sit in these tender committees, among other arms of government. So there'll be a massive conflict of interest when you have somebody who sits in the tender committee competing for the same tender as other people in the private sector. There is reason as to why those laws were enacted by Parliament, and removing them, removing those caps on those laws sounds immoral to me. But we have some saving grace, because Kenya has 3 arms of government: Parliament, of course, the executive, and the judiciary, and all these arms of government usually oversight each other.
Yes.
So what we may probably do is some conscientious citizens will probably go to court and have the court intervene and look into these things. The court has
there was a time when civil servants used to trade, right?
There was a time, yes, but there was a reason as to why they were stopped from trading. I mean, like we've just said, it's basically conflict of interest, because you can't sit in a tender committee and expect that you will award the tender impartially. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you'll always do things skewed to favor yourself. Yeah. So I think it's immoral. And
Pastor David, you, as I always say, you wear so many hats: a pastor, an entrepreneur. You've even applied and fought for these tenders.
Yes.
Where does that place you?
Well, let me tell you, Fred, it's you started by saying these are dark days and bad days for the country, because there are some things which are happening. Really, even when you hear about them, you get shivers. You start asking yourself, what is all this? Because you cannot be the teacher setting the exam, and you are actually going to sit with students who have not seen the exam, and you have the answers.
Yes.
You know, it is actually like what the government is trying to do. That the civil servants who are actually coming up with the documents,
yes,
and actually they are doing everything about the tenders, what will happen is that they already know way ahead that there is this tender that is going to happen. So the briefcase companies are going to mushroom, and you're going to find them now looking for some few people and some CVs.
Yes.
You know, in terms of the tenders, there are things, documents that you put in. So they look for CVs. They are not experts in anything, but they become like brokers.
Yes.
So we are introducing brokerage and all these kind of things in terms of the systems, which is quite unfortunate. Can I tell you what is going to happen is that this is a recipe for corruption.
It's a recipe for corruption. What is the spirit behind it?
I think that I would say that it is pure greed, in the sense that that is my opinion.
Yes.
Really, nobody's other opinion. That is now what I think. It's a pure greed, in the sense that we have like around 50, how many? 50, okay, the people who can be able now to trade. Right now, I think we are over 20 million.
Yes.
Look at all these people, and these people are actually supposed to be serving you, but instead of serving you, they are the one who are actually doing the jobs which you are supposed to be doing. We are really not saying that they cannot do anything, because they can have a company. But when the men and women who actually came in, as you started by saying, there was that kind of business,
yes,
and this was changed because of conflict of interest. When it was being changed, it's because people will not be working. Yes. You'll be paying people for no delivery, because they will be so busy trying to assemble, trying to assemble committee, some groups, so that they can get these tenders. And therefore what will happen is that you'll be going, you remember the time there used to be, you go to someone's office, you only find the only thing that is there is the court. and you are saying this man actually came in, but he came in and he left, because he had another business to do.
Yes.
So I am looking at it that it is going to bring inefficiency and lack of productivity, and again it is going to hurt businessmen in such a big way. You find like now today, as you say, the tenders, we are struggling even to be paid for work that we have done. These guys will actually be paid, but the most bad thing is, like now, I looked at another tender which was being done. A pen that is costing 10 bob, you find it actually now being sold to the government for 50 shillings and above, or 70. So you'll be finding that they will be the one even setting the price. So they are setting the price, every other thing, and that's why Leonard has said there need to be a checkup system. Even if you get that tender, there need to be even people who are going. In fact, I think we still have to fight, because you see the way the MPs are going, this thing may be scrapped. But we really need, as Kenyans, to say no to some of the things which are happening, because they are counterproductive for what we are doing.
Because if I'm tendering for the same, I'm the one who is setting the requirements. I'm the one. It's like here. I determined, okay, we need supply of papers, stationery, and this kind of thing. And this is the quality we are looking for. Then I put out the tender, and I'm also part of the person who's tendering for, and I'm also the one who's going to determine who is going to win this. I mean, what is the spirit behind this? When the president took over the reins of power in Kenya, he said the first thing he'll do, I mean, the fight against corruption it was going to be very merciless. But this doesn't reflect that, does it?
I wouldn't put it on the president, because, as I've said, there are three arms of government. There's parliament, there's the executive, and there's the judiciary. This is parliament. The president has not pronounced himself on this one. So this one cannot be put at the president's door. This is purely parliament. So it's up to us to figure out what the rationale behind this.
And these are our representatives. They claim they are representing us. So according to them, this is what we want.
But you see, sorry Leonard, to cut you. The MPs, are they civil servants?
No, they are not.
So what will happen is, actually what they are doing, they are the ones who are going to create these things. So they are hiding over some people. And actually it is very bad.
So they are acting on behalf?
Yeah, actually, let me tell you. If you want to know, the MPs, they are actually in the government. Civil servants are in the government. So they are actually working things for their own. You know.
So if I hear what David is saying, is like there's somebody probably within the executive has given instructions, pass this.
That would be speculation. And for me, I would rather deal with facts, because when you get to the realm of speculations, we can come up with virtually everything. So facts that are in the public domain at the moment suggest that it's just parliament that is pushing this agenda. For what reasons, we don't know. But like I've said, for me, my hope lies in the fact that we have three arms of government that exercise oversight over one another. That at some point, we will take it up as citizens to the judiciary, and the judiciary will give an interpretation that aligns with the Constitution. You see, parliamentarians may make laws, or they may repeal laws, but if the laws they make or repeal offend the Constitution, then we have a recourse to the courts of law to give a proper interpretation, and either to reinstate those laws or to repeal them altogether, as the case may be. So it's not a hopeless situation. In fact, let me say, these are not dark days. These are exciting days. Dark days are in the past. Dark days are the days when the judiciary was an appendage of the executive, where parliament was subservient to the executive, where we couldn't do anything. You know, as in when the executive decided on something, that was it. There was no recourse. You know, there was no hope for us. Those are the dark days. These are not dark days. We have lots of freedom. I mean, we have a constitution that has given us a lot of empowerment to the extent that we can have this conversation here. I mean, 20 years ago, if we had this conversation, we'd be in detention.
Let me sort out your microphone for a short while. So let's take that short break right now. Let me sort out his microphone so that you can be able to hear what he's saying. He's saying he's just dropping bombs of jewels, some information. Let's take that break, Alice, so that I take care of that microphone.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
From the fields to your screens.
Playing Ronaldo. It is Ronaldo. It's 2-1 United.
This is where you will get your full detailed story from football, hockey, volleyball.
Otavio goes once more. Oh, he's done it brilliantly.
Basketball.
Long range three.
All in one.
For exclusive interviews, discussions and sports feature stories.
Every Monday from 2 p.m.
to 4 p.m.
on EBN TV. This is the scoreboard.
Every Sunday from 9 p.m. Christian World Today. A look at what is happening in the Christendom. We look at revivals, controversies, persecutions, and in-depth interviews on issues affecting the church. Christian World Today with Frederick Njiri. In a fast-paced world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters: your relationship with God. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we take you on a transformative journey of building your faith, without which it's impossible to please God. A journey of introspection and discovery of who you are in Christ Jesus.
For you to walk with God, you should not crumble when you come under pressure. Kama umeokoka, sema umeokoka mpaka mbele ya president, mpaka mbele ya chief justice, mpaka mbele ya kila mtu. Hiyo ndio kuokoka ya ukweli. Kuokoka ya ukweli.
Enjoy a faith-filled environment of worship and ministry of the word every Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 a.m. with Reverend Felix Kevoy, exclusively on EBN TV.
That is the word of the Lord today.
welcome back to the Leadership Challenge show. We're taking a short break so that we can sort the microphone. We're now back, and I hope you can hear us clearly. Leonard, one of the things that these guys are also proposing is that if a civil servant is suspended and basically told to step aside because the investigation is happening in the office where currently you take a half pay.
Right.
But they are proposing that the person should be paid full.
Again, sounds terrible. To me, it is immoral because
today is not April Day. Is this April 1st? Some of the things.
We are in December.
Yeah. But again, those are proposals.
Yes.
It's not a law. It has not been passed into law as yet. And I'm sure there'll be a strenuous debate about the merits or the demerits of that proposal. And at the end of the day, reason, I have every confidence that reason will prevail. Yeah, I have every confidence that reason will prevail. If they do succeed in passing it through, again, we have recourse to the courts of law.
But if you look at the thinking behind this, I mean, this is the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee that is proposing this. These are people who are supposed to be, going through whatever is being passed with a toothpick to ensure that it conforms to the benefits of Kenyans. But this?
Lawyers will say, I'm not a lawyer, but lawyers always say that the law is an ass, and in the sense that one interpretation could flatter one party to the detriment of the other party, and the other way around. So we all, perhaps this Justice and Legal Affairs Committee is looking at is looking at the wearer of the shoe and figuring out that suppose that wearer of the shoe has been asked to step aside on some frivolous charge, on a charge that is precipitated by malice, say, for instance. What happens? Is it fair? Is it fair for him to step aside, to go through the motions of an investigation, perhaps a court case, for 4 or 5 years, meanwhile suffering because he's on half pay, he has loans, he has obligations that he has committed to on the strength of the fact that he's working for this duration of time? Perhaps that's what they are looking at. I'm just acting as the devil's advocate in this case. I'm not saying that that is what it is. But yeah, let's leave it to the courts of law or other institutions now that have been involved in this.
I'm seeing David is just moving on his seat.
I am actually moving like that.
Yes.
It is one, I'm looking at things. These things which are actually already they were operational. There was a reasoning behind why they had to come in place. And it was not that it started that way. It got to a point whereby they agreed, if you have this kind of an issue, this is actually the pay you are going to get. So there were brains and there were people behind this. And in every organization, there is what we call the values. And there are some values which are supposed to drive good character and many other things. And also to help other people. If, for example, you are not careful about a matter, it tells you that this can happen actually. Let me say, sometimes the image that we are getting, like now we are discussing about what the parliament is trying to do. The image already to the Kenyan people is not a very good image when we find them going into those kind of direction. So what we are saying is that these are our leaders. These are the people actually that we consider them to be driving, because there is Wajiko down there. Wajiko would not be able to drive some of these kind of things. And that's why we are saying for Wajiko, there are some things that Wajiko hears and they get irritated about them. Because it is like people are actually becoming only so selfish about themselves, but not really looking at the other people. So what I am saying is, what Leonard is saying is a good thing. But let me say, there are some things we keep on having the legal case, going to this, going to so many different arms, and you find that it is costly. and also it is counterproductive even for the country. So what I would say is that before even like the member of parliament, because they are the people we have chosen,
Yes.
before they make some few things just to be contested in the court, I think they should also have a voice of reasoning. I saw them this week about CDF.
Yeah.
All of them, they were fighting and they were actually in practice and they were saying no CGF. No, you know, they wanted to paralyze every other thing. So if, for example, they are actually fighting for that money, they should also fight for the good morals, for the things that are actually legitimate in terms of some of the things that we put. Obviously, and Leonard has said, we are actually, if the members of parliament, they pass such kind of a things, you'll find Omtata.
Yes.
The next day, he is in the court.
I hope he's not, now that he's a senator, he has not been recruited.
No, actually, that's one man I have seen.
Yes.
And I think it is good that he has always been independent, and he has independent mind.
Yes.
He is a man who will actually go, and even they go and sit with the president, and he tells them, I will not go on the streets, but I will go to the court of laws. And he maintains, and he goes to the court of laws, whether he wins or he doesn't win, he has done his law. But what I am saying, there are some things literally, we should be looking at them in terms of, is it what should be engaging Kenyans? In terms of the laws, in the going to the court. There are some things that we would say, this is a gray area, at least this one, let's get the interpretation from the court. But there are some few things you look at them, really, even from the moral aspect.
Yes.
You just say, I think this
is just obnoxious. You can imagine the situation when you know, the KEMSA scandal came up, where women would say, you know, I was just passing by and I saw that there are tenders that are being floated. I went and I won a tender worth almost 20 million. Now, when you allow civil servants, because obviously what during the KEMSA period, what they were saying was a lot of hogwash. It's people were using other people to get access to those tenders. But now if we allow them to do this openly and we make it legal, then we can just fold all the anti-corruption bodies and send them home.
There are several conversations there, Fred.
Yes.
Let me circle back to what David has said. There are laws that appear unjust, and there are laws that appear to offend. But lawmaking is a continuous process. That is why we have parliament. And parliament is aptly called, the parliamentarians are aptly called lawmakers because they make laws. They make laws, they do away with some, they enact others, you know, whatever fits in with the constitution. So this, we shouldn't get ourselves into a stew on account of what they are proposing at the moment. We should be confident enough in our institutions, in our other institutions, to check what the lawmakers are making at the moment. If they are making laws that are unjust, we should be confident enough in our other institutions. To
maybe we have every reason to be concerned.
I don't think so. The reason why we have all these institutions running, you know, like parliament, the judiciary and everything, is because we are not in a dictatorship. Unfortunately, a democracy tends to be an expensive affair.
The reason why I'm saying there is a possibility we have a reason to be concerned is because just the other day, individuals went to court contesting over the housing fund.
Correct.
The law says the judges pass and say it's illegal.
Yeah.
But they tell you continue paying until.
Yeah.
So it's like I've hit a person and I'm dragging him under the vehicle.
Yeah.
So, but it's illegal, but I'm told, okay, bear with him, continue until you get to the next junction.
Yeah, we appreciate what the judges said, yes, and that's why the matter was taken to court. And if you looked at what the judges said, it was illegal because it offended certain sections of the Constitution.
Yes.
And it gave a window for the government to go and rectify those sections of the Constitution that were offended, so that the same Finance Act now can be properly operationalized legally. That was the essence of what the judges were doing. And there's reason. I mean, there's logic behind it, obviously, because we have a finance bill that we have gone through the motions of the finance bill and whatever. We've made it into an act of law. It's now operationalized, and it is necessary in terms of the financing of the government itself, the operations of the government. If you strip some aspect of that finance act, government operations then become paralyzed. So it is necessary. It's very necessary. And that's the wisdom of the judges. They've given the government time to make it properly legal, to make it fit within the constitution. That is why they have allowed the government to continue collecting that
illegality.
No, I wouldn't call it illegality. I mean, the government does not, the law does not allow you to operate illegalities, you know. I mean, the law allows you to do only that which is legal. So it is legal, but the mechanism of distribution on whatever it is that the judges came up with is what has to conform to the constitution.
Now you know why he's a communications expert.
You know, I like how Leonard is actually looking at things. You know, it is good the way he is looking at things. When I looked at that pronouncement,
yes,
I saw lawyers who are for and lawyers who are not. You see?
Yes.
So there is a lot of argument about it, the whole thing, in terms of why is it that they were given 45 days. He has said it well. It is because there were some projects which were still continuing. But what we are saying is, that one you can understand. Anyway, I would really support what he is saying, in the sense that maybe you had some suppliers who had supplied things, and it is not their problem. In the sense that you gave them, they won a tender,
yes,
because you see, you are giving them tenders and they are continuing. So you should not punish them for the fact that the laws which actually were put were not good for them. So
yes,
it is good at least to allow a bit of time for them to continue operating. But what we are saying is that there is some days they have been given. I think by 10th of January,
yes,
they should have completed that. I have seen some few things that they are trying to address. So they will go back and we'll see whether they have addressed the issues. Because
yes,
one of the things they were being asked, look, you are only going to charge this housing to allow 2 million to 3 million people,
yes,
who are actually having a pay slip. But there is another very big group. But can I tell you one of the things? The people who make money are not the 3 million. The 3 million actually.
The people who get salaries at the end of the month.
Yes. So again, in terms of what we are saying is that there are several things, as he said, it is a continuous process. There are several things that you look at it from the outlet and you see this kind of reasoning. And I think it is something which has been brought up. But because of the political atmosphere which is in the country right now, you find that even reasoning sometimes is thrown out of the door. There are several things, and this is exactly what we are saying. There are some things that we ought to reason together, but we are finding ourselves not reasoning because there is actually what is driving some few other things.
Yes.
And I think it is very important. Today, like I can tell you, I looked at the news yesterday and I looked at the engineers and architects.
Yes.
One of the things they have said is that even housing right now we are talking about, it may not be that affordable. Given there are so many components which are actually going to be included in building those affordable houses, the prices for all those products has actually skyrocketed.
Yes.
Some of them by 36%, others by 28%. So when you look at even the price that we are talking about in terms of this, it becomes a very expensive affair. So I think through these 45 days they have been given, they should also sit down and do the proper costings. And also they can do a bit of explore, you know, they explore and move a little bit forward in terms of how the things and the products and all these are moving, because you may actually have what we call a white elephant. You have built houses, but even the people you wanted them to be able to get these houses, they may not be able to afford because the prices is also skyrocketing. Some of the small houses we have been building, which were actually like a million. Right now you go and you build the same house, definitely it is going to be 1.3, 1.5 million because of the components which are there. So what we are saying is let them not narrow down on what the judiciary is talking about, but they let them now use these 45 days to look at some of the other areas that really need to be looked into, because what they had in the beginning may not be what it is today. So I think I would call for the voice of reasoning and let people go down and look at the realities, so that we don't just pass anything because we are in a different political divide. So I think I would call for
so what you're saying is all this conversation is getting murky because it's being tainted by political interest?
I wouldn't put it quite like that. There are things that we need to appreciate. First and foremost is that the economy is in a terrible state. And this government inherited an economy that was in a terrible state. And I'll give you facts. When Mwai Kibaki took over from President Moi, I think the debt to GDP ratio, I think was in the 40s, thereabout, which is acceptable. When Mwai Kibaki handed over to Uhuru Kenyatta, debt to GDP was around 40s as well, way below, you know, it was in the 40s, way below the acceptable threshold for developing countries like Kenya, which is about 60%. When in the first term of Uhuru, debt to GDP was at 57%.
57?
Yes. Again, within the acceptable threshold for developing countries like ours.
Yes.
When Uhuru handed over to William Ruto, debt to GDP was at an all-time high of 68%. So we had breached the acceptable level of 60% by 8%. Totally unacceptable. So at the point this administration was taking over, this country was in a deep hole. That's a fact that we must appreciate. There are initiatives that have been taken by this administration to try and correct that mess that they found. And one of them is that Finance Act 2023. It is punitive, very punitive, but it is very necessary to get us out of the hole. We have debt repayments that keep falling due every other month. And these are external debts. By law, we cannot default on those debts because government has guaranteed them. If we default on those debts, it becomes extremely difficult. I mean, life becomes far worse for the ordinary Kenyan than it is at the moment. So we must discharge those debts. So I'll give you an example. This year alone, we've used 70% of the revenues that we have collected in terms of tax to service external debt.
70% of the revenue?
Of our revenues.
Yes.
When by law we should be using something to the tune of about 30 or 40%, then using 30% for development, then using another 30% for recurrent expenditure. But we have taken 70% and used it to service external debt. Where does that leave development? Where does that leave recurrent expenditure? Now that Finance Act 2023, and specifically the housing levy, is an innovative way of raising funds, of bringing development. Because without development, the economy comes to a standstill. So it's a very innovative way of bringing development to the country. And we know, I mean, what it entails. The government sets land aside. It invites the private sector to come and participate. First of all, it collects funds as a government. Then it provides a public sector. It allows the private sector to come in and build affordable housing. At the end of the day, the private sector is stimulated because all these contractors, engineers, plumbers, what have you, they come in and they take up these jobs. Government has provided the land, so the cost has come down. They do what they need to do, and we have affordable housing.
Yes.
But there's one thing that, as our colleague David has mentioned, there's an aspect that has not quite been taken into account. The fact that prices of everything have been rising. Prices of steel, prices of cement, prices of inputs have been rising. And they have been rising because of what we call exogenous factors, factors that are external to this government. But the government has not taken a backseat when all this is happening. They have continued to tighten the belt. Look, for example, a couple of days ago, I think the CBK raised its interest rates, essentially to control the flow of money within the country, to store the value of that money that is within the country, so that that depreciation that has been happening, I think it's been put at about, is it 30-something% from the beginning of the year to the moment, so that that depreciation stops. So CBK has stepped in, exercised its function as an institution of government to reduce the depreciation of the Kenya currency, to make sure the Kenya currency fulfills its function, one of its basic functions, which is as a store of value. Yeah. So CBK has stepped in, and these things that David is talking about, pricing and everything, they have been corrected. Yeah. And those exogenous factors that we are talking about, like the price of fuel, those are also naturally being corrected from the outside. Fuel is coming down. Yeah, I think it was the Brent crude, which is the price, which is the benchmark price for crude oil around the world, was at a peak of about 93, 90 something. Last time I checked, I think that was yesterday, it had come down to about 60. We are going to feel that impact soon. So the depreciation of the shilling is going to stop. The other exogenous factor is the fact that US federal bonds have been at an all-time high in terms of interest.
So majority of people have been buying the US dollar.
Yes. Investors have been moving from here and buying US dollar. There's been a capital flight, so to speak. Yeah, investor flight, so to speak. Because people have been pulling their dollars from here to go and invest in the US. US now has gotten to a point where it is now satisfied with whatever it is doing. The federal bank is satisfied with whatever it is doing. Interest rates are not rising. In fact, they've remained constant this month. And chances are, because whatever correction that was needed has been done, those interest rates are going to begin to come down. What happens? People now will begin to look at emerging markets like ours as a better avenues of investment. So capital is going to come back. So all these things, in another 1 year or so, should be corrected. Okay. And we should see houses becoming affordable once again. And we should then now move on with the business of building these houses for 190.
I'm seeing time running pretty fast. And let's look at your pet project and pet subject, KQ. Yes. Let me start off with David. David, when you look at KQ, the last time they started posting losses, Leonard will tell us why. But when you look at the trajectory that KQ has been taking and its state right now, what would you say?
Well, I think all of us, we have been seeing what has been happening with the KQ, and we know even the support that the government has given to KQ. And I would say that for some time I saw it's like they were moving from the worst position, at least they were climbing up. So those are some of the indicators which I have seen. One of the things I can say, there are some projects that can be done, and you have to stay with them and correct them in the process. I know there was actually an expansion which was done some times back, even in terms of the looting. There are some loots that you could find at least they had gotten to, and they knew that these loots would be productive. But they get into the operations and they find that they are not the way they are. And therefore, you are actually left with a bit of, the capital intensive assets, which at least some of them are actually on loan and such kind of things. And those loans have to be serviced. Like the way you say, defaulting is actually not the best option. It may actually make you even to become, you see, like the CLB, the time you see people are being put in the CLB, it's because actually you took the loan and you did not pay. So what I think about is I looked at some few things in terms of the operating profits. There is actually the other in terms of your balance sheet. Those one I don't want to explain because I'm in finance. But there are some things in the balance sheet, but there is what we call the profit and loss. if you looked at actually the profit and loss for the KQ, I would say it is becoming better. It is not as bad because many people look at it, but if you actually interrogate the figures, you realize that there are several things. Like now, you see, like even this country, even in terms of the debts that we are having, it is being affected by even the currencies. Even for them, they are actually not in their own world. They are actually in the same economy that we are in. And most of the debts that they have may actually not be denominated at the Kenya currency. It is actually in those dollars. So the impact that we are feeling as Kenya, I would think also it is, but he will tell us, it is also affecting the KQ. So I would say I am in business. And I have seen it has not been a very easy year. Even for me, I'm closing the year. But I can tell you, in terms of looking at the way the business has been, it has been a bit slow. You find that, like the people we were talking, like the Act 2023, they were talking about some of the parts of the plane and all these being actually not being vetted and all those kind of things. There are ways that they are trying to see how can we be able to make this organization to look good. So I think it is not an easy thing as people may look from the outside. And we were being told, when you find a house that is full of glass and there is a bird inside, the birds which are outside, they will always be saying, I wish I can be inside there. Because they are seeing it is a very good environment there. The bird jumping like that. And then they are here, they have the freedom. But you see, you always make and even in the football game, you find the people who play the game so much is actually the spectators. They are saying that he would have done that. You know, that is what they will say. But if they go to the field, you find that they may not even touch that ball. But they will actually be the people who will talk a lot. Let me say, right now, it would be unfair really to say much about what is happening with organizations. Because things, if they have put the government to be where it is, these are small, like the small economies, which is building the economy for the country. So whatever is happening in the country right now is a reflection of what is happening in the business argos. So there is quite a lot that we are trying to do. Like, I told you, I have a contract with the USIU for carrying the students. It was expiring on 2nd of December. They called me and they told me, before we even think about anything, we want to give you extension for 3 more months. You know what I told them? Thank you, but I am sorry. I can't take the contract again. Why? It is because when I look at the economic conditions, I will operate those 3 months at a pure loss. It is not that, because if, for example, we say let the student increase the transport fees, they are unable even to pay the school fees. So you are actually going to do something which is going to be not productive. You will actually charge high, but you will get very few people. So at the end of the day, you have to balance and you make decisions. So it has been hard. It has been difficult. And I believe the fact that KQ is still afloat, I think it's good enough.
No, I'm really impressed by what David has said. And to me, it speaks to one thing, that the communication that KQ has been doing from the onset of the year to the present is working. Kenyans are seeing what is really happening at KQ. There are really good things happening. And it's also an indictment of mainstream media, because mainstream media makes a big show of carrying all the negative headlines. They never read the positivity, even behind some of the statements. David has just said that from his finance background, he can clearly see that there is an operating profit that has been made. I mean, from the profit and loss account, he can clearly see that there is an operating profit that has been made. KQ announced at some point this year, I think the half-year results. And they mentioned that they had made an operating profit of close to 1 billion shillings for the first time in 6 years. Those are not the headlines we saw. All we saw is KQ makes losses, KQ makes losses. But Kenyans are brilliant people, like David. they're interrogating some of these headlines, and they're beginning to see beyond the headlines. They're beginning to see the truth that is crystallized. The fact that the airline is indeed turning around, it's making profit. But my excitement is because this profit is not just a fluke. It's not just happenstance. It is deliberate. It's on the backbone of deliberate effort to turn this airline around. I think the last time we were here, we had been promised that from KQ statement, we had been promised that KQ will be profitable by 2024, that they will achieve an operating profit by 2024. The fact that they have done that even before 2024, in the half year, to June this year, speaks something, it tells you something. But when you look behind even those headlines, or behind that statement, that positive statement, there are things that they have been doing. Let me give you a bit of background. KQ got into an expansion drive, as David has rightly said, I think in between 2010 and 2012, 13. And there were some fundamental issues that occurred in that expansion drive, and things went wrong. And they resulted in what is called a legacy debt. A legacy debt is a debt that is incurred, that was incurred by an institution in time past, when priorities were different, when objectives were different, when the business outlook was different. And that still affect that organization currently, when everything is different, when circumstances are very different. So KQ has that legacy debt that came from the first expansion drive called Project Mawingu. And that debt continues to affect it to the present. But what they have done, the first and foremost thing that the current board and management have done is to get into what you call Operation Kifaru, as explained by the board and management of KQ. Operation Kifaru was first of all to stabilize KQ because of the issues of the operating debt, because of other issues like COVID, because of issues like the airport that burnt down and that affected KQ operations, because of Ebola that affected KQ, because of the war in Central Africa that affected KQ, because of Westgate, the Westgate terrorist attack and Garissa terrorist attack. Yeah, all those things that affected KQ, even things like post-election violence of 2007, 2008. Those are things that affected KQ, and compounded, they created that legacy debt. So KQ, first of all, has gone into Project Kifaru, the first phase, to stabilize the business. How? Operationally. As David has said, there are things that they are doing operationally that are beginning to bear fruit. He talked about route rationalization. How KQ probably got into routes that were not making profit. Now it has rationalized the routes, cut off the ones that are not making profit and focused on the ones that are profitable. At the moment, KQ is doing double dailies to London. That means double dailies, 2 flights to London every day. It means 14 flights. At the moment, KQ is doing, I think, a daily flight to New York. At the moment, KQ is doing several flights to Cape Town. I think daily flights to Cape Town. And even more strong, double dailies to Johannesburg. Then we have Zambia, we have Malawi, we have Zimbabwe, and all these other destinations within the region that KQ is working on. And do you know, KQ is full. You can't get a seat on KQ. KQ is full to the brim.
On these flights?
On these flights.
Oh, okay.
Every flight. I mean, KQ solidly booked to next year. It is doing extremely well. Then operationally again, that's operation. Of course, that is basically increasing capacity. It's called available seats kilometers. That's when you increase capacity, you put new flights and everything. Then it's also, then of course that now load factors, the fact that those flights are not just there, but they are full. Those are favorable load factors. Then KQ is also looking at turnaround times. At the beginning of the year, you had the hue and cry about KQ delays and how flights will be delayed and cancelled. That has been sorted out. They have a chief operating officer, a guy who's really focused on his job. And he's ensuring that planes they depart and arrive on time. The global parameter is what is called on-time performance. Usually, you have a datum line of 85%. When you have made that datum line, then you're operating within those global parameters. KQ has consistently been above the datum line, in terms of operating, arriving on time and departing on time. Usually there is a plus or minus 15 minutes datum time. Plus and minus 15, KQ I think has consistently achieved 98 to 100%. Then on time, that is right on time, it has I think achieved about 95, 96, thereabout percent consistently. Then of course there is the utilization of aircraft. This is something that Kenyans should know, and I'm very proud of it. I mean, I've talked to KQ people and I've gotten this information. You have a rating for safety and reliability and utilization, and then you're given a score. KQ, when it comes to Boeing 737 aircraft, they were awarded, they were voted the best airline by Boeing themselves, Boeing Analytics, in terms of utilization of the aircraft, in terms of reliability of the aircraft, that means the aircraft is properly maintained, and in terms of safety procedures that go with the airlines. For Boeing, I repeat, they are voted #1 for the month of August.
#1 in Africa or global?
#1 globally.
Global.
Okay.
For the month
That's
of
good.
August, rolling back 3 months. That is an achievement and a half. And for Embraer have their own analytics, of course. For Embraer, they were voted 4th best in the world. Tells you something, that operationally, they have done something and it is paying off, and you can see it even in the load factors, and you can see it in the fact that they are now turning an operating profit. Where are they going from here? I think the CEO wrote in the newspapers, and we read that, and he said that the next phase is Project Kifaru 2, which will entail getting rid of the legacy debt that I just talked about.
Yes.
By some means, the government will figure out how that will have to be taken care of. Government working with KQ will figure out how that legacy will be taken care of. Because once it is removed from the books, KQ becomes instantly net profitable. He's in finance, he will tell you.
Yes.
Instantly net profitable. Second, and importantly, recapitalizing the business so that you can buy more aircraft. Now we have the business, with Proven, we have a business model that works. KQ now needs to move out, increase its footprint across the continent and across the rest of the world, and then renew its fleet.
Okay.
So that we have brand new aircrafts now working. So that is Project Kifaru 2 that is coming. Okay.
We would have continued with that. It's only that time's up. You can literally sell that. You can even get somebody to buy a plane. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's not bad.
Yes.
It's looking good, I can say.
Yeah.
Very good.
And it brings us to a beautiful end, a positive end.
Yeah.
In the sense that there's something that is on the outward, and what is being said may look negative.
Yes.
But when you cut it, you unpeel it, it looks so beautiful. There are good things happening.
Correct.
And probably that's one day we'll be talking about our economy, the same thing. The peel, the peel is bitter.
Correct.
For now. But once we peel it open, it's going to get beautiful.
By the way, it's true what you're saying. You see, like the interest rates right now, it's a pain to the Kenyan people. But I can tell you, it is going to be what is going to save this economy.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. We can start another conversation. Right? We got to bring down the curtains on the show. Thank you very much for tuning in and listening to us. And look at things from a different perspective. Yeah, the peel may be bitter, but hey, inside it's a beautifully sweet orange. And that's from what I gather from this gentleman, that's the state of our economy, that's the state of KQ. So look at things from a different perspective. Do have yourself a lovely morning. Remember, Daughters of the King coming shortly. Got very interesting conversation about what happens to the daughters of the kingdom. So stay tuned for that. Good.